video I'm going to be doing my August wrap-up video. I have a ton of books to get through because I've read a lot this month. I don't know why. I think I was just reading some really good books and it just like spurred me on to read more. So let's just jump right in. The first two I'll start off with, I think briefly mention in my last book video, but I just wanted to touch on them just in case. And that is Daughter by Jane Schimmel. I gave this 3 stars, I believe. Yeah, 3 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. It is about a mother whose daughter goes missing, and the timeline of the book jumps between before she was missing to present day to like a couple of weeks after. And yeah, it was like an alright mystery thriller book. Wasn't the best that I've read. So I thought I'd just mention that. And then the other one I loved, I gave this 5 out of 5 stars, so it's definitely worth mentioning again. This is The Prison Doctor by Dr. Amanda Brown. It is about a doctor that works in prisons in the UK and just basically what her day-to-day life is. She's gone through a different few prisons, so it gives you slight variety on things, and I found it was interesting. You not only could sympathise with her, but it also made you slightly sympathise with some of the prisoners, which was really scary, but I just find this sort of thing very, very interesting. So if you like documentaries or just like real-time books, this is a good one to read. So quickly just wanted to get those out of the way. I want to talk about one book that I actually bought this month. I've not bought anything since that birthday book haul, and I got this just yesterday, so it's technically a September book. But this is Unnatural Causes by Dr. Richard Shepherd. Got this in Costco for $4.79. So this book is written by a forensic pathologist and basically talks about autopsies and all the different people he's come across, from serial killers, murders, freak accidents, so all sorts of things. Again, I love real life things, especially like in medicine as well, so I'll be very interested to read that. So that's the only sort of book I've got to show you that I've bought recently. So then I have 5 more books to share with you. So I've got my Goodreads, let's get started. The first book that I read was The Notebook by Nicholas Sparks. Obviously I went into this with pretty high expectations, you know, it's a very well-known Nicholas Sparks novel and film, and so I thought, why not just read it? I was slightly underwhelmed by it. Like, I enjoyed it, but, you know, I'm not gonna read this again. To be honest, it doesn't make me really want to watch the film. I only gave it 2 stars. I did think it had a lot going for it in this book, but I felt like maybe it was slightly too small and slightly too rushed. I would have liked to have known more about Noah and Ali before this book. Like, it talked about how they had this great summer together, and I would have loved to have known more about that, which maybe it delves into more in the film, but I felt like this book was sort of lacking in aspects. And although it's got that romance to it, I felt like probably most Nicholas Sparks books, it was a little bit predictable, and it was alright. If you like a cheesy romance, then you might enjoy it, but for me it was pretty underwhelming, so we'll probably pass that one on. So the next book I then read was A Storm of Ice and Stars by Lisa Ludecki, and this is a YA book. It's sort of a little bit dystopian, slightly like, yeah, I'd say dystopian actually, and it's basically about these 2 girls that are one day exiled from their local town. People think they're witches and that they've committed these murders, and they live on this like little Nordic type island, as you can see, and it basically follows their journey of survival really through the country. So how they've dealt with previous grief. You've got the main girl, which is called Jana, and then she also finds friendship in her ex-boyfriend's sister. I say ex, but they were still boyfriend and girlfriend when he died. Spoiler. it's not that much of a spoiler, you find out straight away. I did enjoy this book. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I would have liked to have read more about Jana's boyfriend and a little bit more about their history. I was slightly disappointed by the ending, but sometimes I don't know if that's the actual book or if it's me reading like the last 50 pages too quickly. Sometimes I'm so like eager to get to the end of the book that I just fly through it a bit too much and sort of miss key elements, if you get what I mean. So I did enjoy it. If you're looking for a nice like dystopian book set like in the woods, and it also has an element of like plague to it. The country and the town is looks like it's going to have this plague be cast upon it by these lights that they see in the sky. It sounds weird, but once you read the book, it sets you in it. So I did enjoy that book, would recommend it. Next one I read was The Truth About Keeping Secrets by Savannah Brown. This is another YA book. This is more of a suspense mystery one. It's about a girl called Sydney, and her father is the town's main therapist, and one day he is involved in a car crash, and Sydney is obviously dealing with this grief, but she also is suspicious that someone was behind it, someone set it up. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. Not only does it cover sort of death and grief, but also you've got that mystery element to it. There's also a friendship plotline in between it with Sydney and this girl called June, who turns up one day at her dad's gravestone, and Sydney finds out that June was seeing her dad for some therapy, and they sort of build this friendship, partly out of the connection between her and her dad, and partly Sydney starts to have this sort of lust for her, in a sense. So I did enjoy this and the sort of like character development in it. The ending was quite good. I didn't really see the twist coming, and yeah, I flew through this book, so enjoyed that. So the next book I want to talk about is not the one that I read next, but it's the one I've most recently read and has slightly put me in a slump, so I didn't want to end on it, so I wanted to talk about it now. This is The City in the Middle of the Night by Charlie Jane Anders. I only gave this 2 stars. I should have DNA'd this after maybe the first 100 pages, but in typical Sophie fashion, I don't like to DNA books, and I would rather skim read the rest of the book and waste time that way. I found it very hard to get into it, and it's very sci-fi dystopian, and I found it very hard to get into the setting of it. There was a lot of mix between stuff that's like names for things that we know, and then names for things that made no sense at all or had a different connotation with actual real life, if you see what I mean. I just found it very difficult to get into it. I don't think it was necessarily explained as well as it could be at the start. I think just the overall environment setting wasn't described as good as I would have liked it. Not saying that you might not get into it as well. It's definitely got some mixed reviews on Goodreads, and with any of these books, as I always say, don't just take my word for it. Read other people's reviews and watch their videos, because everyone's opinion is different on books, and just because I don't like it doesn't mean you won't as well. So yeah, I really could not tell you anything that happened in the last 3/4 of this book. Basically, it's set on this planet that has been created from a group of people landing there on a spaceship. That's really all I can tell you. Yeah, but yeah, I really tried to persevere with this book, but I just couldn't get to grip with the language of it, so that was a bit of a bummer. So the last book I will talk about is probably my favourite that I read out of all of these, and this is The Mother-in-Law by Sally Hepworth. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. So it starts with Lucy, who is sort of one of the main characters in this book, and one day she goes to her front door, the police are there, and they say that her mother-in-law Diana has died, and they were sort of expecting her death to happen because she'd told them that she had cancer, and so they sort of prepared for that at some point. But the police have come and have said that it is a suspected suicide, and that has come as a complete shock to them. But when the autopsy report comes in, not only do they find out that it is potentially not a suicide, there was none of the poison in her, but also there was no cancer that she was speaking of. So it throws in a lot of different questions. There also is some slight troubles with the will that she's made. Diana and her husband are very wealthy, and so that always throws something into the mix. Does someone have a motive for killing her? That sort of thing. And throughout the whole book, you can suspect like every character of the family of wanting to murder her, except for her husband. I didn't really think of him at any point. But I really enjoyed this. It kept me sort of gripped throughout. I loved the character development of Diana. I thought at the start you really disliked her, but by the end of it you really grew to warm to her. And I liked to see her development also with her daughter-in-law as well. That was quite good. But yeah, and there's not just those two characters in their lives, but there's also her sister-in-law and her little family, and you really get lots of different aspects of the family and like motives they might have for wanting to kill the mother of the family. So I really enjoyed that. Definitely would recommend it. So let's finish with the book that I am planning on reading next. Very different from all the rest of these. This is The Kingdom by Jess Rothenberg. Like I said, I'm a little bit on a book slump from that last book, this one, so I haven't actually picked it up yet. I'm hoping to in the next couple of days. But this is basically set in a theme park. Disney, I would have thought. And I believe it's slightly like fantasy and about these like android princesses by the sounds of it, and that sort of mixing the fantasy with the reality. So hopefully that will get me in the Disney mood. And yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this book review video. Let me know if you've read any of these books and what you thought of them. If you plan on adding any to your to be read shelf, I'd love to know, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys.